So Kneebody basically began as a group of friends. That's how we started. We were musicians. Most of us went to the Eastman School of Music. That's where we met. A couple guys did their graduate work at Cal Arts in Los Angeles. We ended up in LA just by coincidence and played together because we knew each other. So it started there. We didn't have that name yet. I really like to think of it that way, that band started as a friendship, and then the music kind of came later. But it's been an amazing journey. Our first kind of regular gig was at a really cool, kind of like rock club called the Temple Bar in Santa Monica. And David Byrne wrote once in his book about music, he had this theory that I actually think is maybe true, which is that he has this theory that the venues that you play in are actually what shape the music first. In other words, if your regular gig is in a church, this big reverberant church, you're going to kind of maybe play and write music that would fit that space. So the first place that we played, us as like these sort of trained conservatory jazz musicians, was a rock club. And immediately, without really having to talk about it, we just thought, well, it would kind of seem lame to have music stands up here, so maybe we should memorize the music. And maybe we should write music that kind of takes advantage of this huge, powerful sound system, and maybe even kind of reflects some of the other music that's being played here. So I really think starting there is what kind of created the sound of the band, which is, our band is literally, you read half the reviews of our band, we're sort of famous for being incredibly hard to pin down, for being genreless. And I think that comes from beginning in a venue that was genreless, that had like everything in it. It had hip hop, and it had trip hop, and it had electronica, and it had rock bands and pop. It had everything in there. And then things just kind of progressed. We started touring. Daedelus, he started a record label called Greenleaf. We were his first release on that label, which was, I think, the first time that we started to have a wider awareness. We later did an album with Theo Bleckman, exploring the music of Charles Ives. That was an album that we got a Grammy nomination for. And we've been a band for over a decade. We are still very good friends. We've been to each other's weddings. We like to hang out with each other. And I think more than anything, for people that have never seen the band before and have never heard the music, often what they come away with after hearing the band is they just say, man, when we see you, it's so obvious that you enjoy being on stage with each other. There's this real sense of camaraderie and communion. And I think that's the energy that translates in this band. And it's kind of a minor miracle, especially within the field of jazz, to last this long. It's a very special thing. So. Yeah. So the next Kneebody album will be a collaboration with a great electronic musician named Daedelus. Daedelus is actually someone I've known since high school. He was originally a bass player, and eventually got into this other world and has really created a really striking, unique, recognizable sound in this world. Very prolific. And we've always wanted to do something together. We actually did like a completely experimental improvised set at the Vienna Jazz Festival many years ago, which kind of started this dialogue. And then what happened? And then a couple of years ago, I received a grant through Chamber Music America. It's called the New Works Grant, and it essentially helped fund the recording of and the composing of a suite that I wrote for Kneebody and this artist named Daedelus. So we recorded this album. It's amazing. It's really like what I would hope for, which is this true blend of electronic and acoustic and everything in between. It doesn't sound like Kneebody, it doesn't sound like Daedelus, it sounds like something else. It's even more impossible to define than our band already is. So.
Is there a name for the album?
Well, maybe it's going to be called Needless. I want a Daedelbody, but I think it's going to be Needless. This year, two new projects that I'm a sideman in are Gerald Clayton's new quintet, and I've been subbing for Seamus Blake and Antonio Sanchez's group. And I mean, what I get out of it is I get to play with some serious badass musicians, and I get to learn from them. And the best way to learn from musicians that you admire is through that direct, symbiotic exchange of playing music together. There's a deeper understanding that you receive by literally sharing music together. So it's wonderful because I get to explore their world of composition and how they see music, and I get to take that with me, and it helps me grow and hopefully become a better musician on my own. Well, this is my first time here, and I mean, I couldn't be happier to come here with a band that I co-lead, Kneebody, and then also with some of my favorite peers and musicians, the Gerald Clayton Quintet. So it's a great way to experience this festival for the first time. Yeah, I didn't have any expectations with Newport. I mean, the first album I ever heard of the Newport Jazz Festival is like that seminal album, the Duke Ellington album, where Paul Gonzalez takes this like 12-minute epic blues chord. You know, it's just like, I think I transcribed like half of that. So actually in my mind, I think I imagined something like so much bigger, you know? I mean, this is big, you know, these are huge stages and large audiences, but I guess, you know, when you listen to a recording like that, it becomes this other thing, you know. So, but it's been great. Very, very warm audiences. Obviously, intelligent audiences that know how to experience music and reciprocate with like an energy that feeds you. Ben Wendel,